So, welcome everybody to South Journey podcast. I'm Faye Channing, your host, and I have the lovely and incredible Vanessa Basford on today, who is the co founder of Liberella, which is a fantastic space for many things. And I actually want to kickstart Vanessa with just reading out a lovely quote that I found on your website. And I think it's a really nice reminder of how we just can take a pause and just notice our inner world. So the quote that you had is the only world we really live in is our inner world. And it's so important that we take care of it. And I just think that's a really nice reminder, of how sometimes in life we can be very fast paced and actually we need to come back to our inner world. And this is something you really live by in your practice. You're a heart-led founder and holistic well-being practitioner of Liberella, and your passion lies in helping people. And Vanessa's really incredible at helping people on their healing journeys in these deeper realms through trauma-informed life coaching, somatic bodywork, energy healing, embody facilitator, and massage as well. And she's gained so much wisdom of working with the mind and body and all these lovely modalities over the years that she can really help people in one-to-one journeys to promote real change in their lives from a heart-centered space. I think, that's such a key thing for practitioners to come from the heart. And you can really feel that in all of Vanessa's work. So whether you just need that self-care or you feel quite disconnected from your spiritual self, or you might have been overworking and need to rekindle that reconnection, Vanessa's your person. So she's very passionate about life and listening to your heart's desires as well. And that really ripples out in her energy field as a practitioner, just in terms of the way that she lives as well. And you can find Vanessa in Exeter, Devon, in the UK for in person, but she always holds these lovely online one-to-ones as well. So whether that's 3 month personal programs or life coaching, there's plenty of ways to connect with her. So Vanessa, it's so great to have you here today.
Thank you. Thank you for such a lovely introduction. It's very kind. Good to be here.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And Vanessa and I have known each other for years. We have weaved in each other's lives through various different points. And I just really wanted you as a guest on this podcast. So I actually poached you and said, can you fancy joining? Because I think you have such a fantastic story to share that I think it's going to really inspire people to really listen to themselves. And you're a real advocate of this, that you've lived and breathed it. And I really am curious about your journey in that as well. So there's a few things that I don't know necessarily. So to all the listeners out there, we are listening to this journey properly for the first time. And I think your heart-centered approach is needed in the world, especially during times where it can be quite unstable energetically. So I guess, can I say, like, how did your journey start? And I know that's a big question because you might think, gosh, how far do we go back? But you've been in this practice a long time and you've developed and you've really held your own business, but you've also been on your personal journey as well in reflection to that. So
Yeah.
where did this all kickstart for you?
Yeah. I think it always comes personal first, and then well, it has done for me. My business and my practice has evolved alongside my journey. Um, so my personal journey began, it would be nearly 8 years ago now, when I was just about to turn 29. I think it was literally like a week before. Hello, Saturn return. And I left my marriage, which was a 10-year relationship. So it's a huge life change. Someone I'd obviously been with since I was a teenager. And I also had other things that kind of contributed to a bit of a, I don't know, just this feeling of like oh, things aren't right in my life. The marriage ending was definitely the huge spark, but there was also like a family member had passed away and some other things. And it sort of, I think, accumulates and, then it sort of like sparks these deep questions, like I really wasn't on this path before then.
Mm,
And yeah, I wasn't conscious at all, really. And I think it definitely sparked all those questions of like, who am I? Like, what am I here for? Like, is this it in life, So yeah, that's kind of where my journey began. And then, yeah, as I started to um, go on a personal journey of self-discovery, of spirituality, and all the things that weren't in my life at all before then, as then did my business evolve as well.
yeah, sure. So there's like so many life changes in that time, leaving a marriage or deciding to, sort of end a marriage of 10 years. It's such a big decision, how did it feel to like listen to yourself or maybe just actually listen to within and go with that?
Um, it was hard. It
Mm,
was really hard because I didn't have the connection I have now with my intuition. So it felt very like, you know, people, like family
mm,
members might question it. I was questioning it even more, but there was like something so deep in me that was just like, this is not your path. This is not right. So yeah, it was really hard to do that. But also liberating in a way, just to like do something that was completely right for me. And I don't think I, I don't know if I'd ever done something that's solely for me before, you know?
mm, yeah.
And, leaving a marriage. We weren't married for 10 years. We were together for 10 years, but that doesn't really make a difference. But, there's lots of other people to think about in those decisions. It affects family members and it, causes a lot of stuff for a lot of people, let alone your partner of 10 years. So yeah, it's again like a huge thing to do something just for you, but it's
Mm,
right for you. So
mm.
yeah.
Yes, and I can imagine that just opened up like this a whole new door of actually, I need to be listening to myself. Is that how you
Yeah.
felt from that point on?
Yeah, because I think now if I look back at that time or that lead up to the time or even when we got engaged, it's like, oh, actually, I can see how that wasn't really right for me. I can see that that wasn't, true to I wasn't true to myself, but I didn't really
Mm,
know at the time.
mm,
Um, because I never took any time to listen to myself. I never took any time to listen to my inner world. I wouldn't even really probably even understood half the terms that we might talk about in this podcast today back then. But but there was that, I know something's not right.
mm,
I know my mental world is not right. I know my inner world is not the way it should be. Like life shouldn't feel like this. That was, I guess, all I
mm.
had to go on.
Yeah, sure. And feeling is enough, isn't it?
Yeah.
As human beings, we feel so much, and that's such a guide in itself. What was the feeling that you had that really signaled, like, this isn't my path and I need to do something about it? How did that show up? Was it just like a feeling in your stomach, or was it just like a knowing?
I had actually forgotten until you just said stomach then. I did actually have like started to have like some problems with my tummy, like gut type issues. Nothing like major, but I was starting to get some, I guess, physical type responses.
Mm,
Just highly anxious. But I was sort of one of those people that's like a high functioning anxious person, like from the outside, everything looks good, everything's fine. No one would have no idea what's going on the internal world. But, it's that feeling of now looking back, I'm like, oh God, I was a complete control freak. I needed to have everything in order,
mm,
uh, needing to keep busy, all these things to escape what is, what is really true for you, I guess.
mm. Yeah, that's really great to know how that showed up for you, in
Yeah.
terms of that body sense. And I guess from that point on, what was your kind of like next step? If, you've realized actually, I haven't ever really listened to myself or put myself first. I have now. What was the kind of next step for you in terms of like reclaiming this connection to your soul, let's just say?
Yeah. So I started having some talking therapy with a wonderful practitioner. And actually, it was really lovely because she also offered me Reiki. So she was, she brought me into that kind of holistic world.
Hmm.
I think I'd maybe had like a 10-minute taster once before, but it was the first time I'd really ever had anything like that. And I remember the first session, it was like, again, didn't know any of these terms before, but now I know it's like that Kundalini thing. It was like this snake, could feel it coming up through me. And I was like, wow, okay, like there's something in this, So that began that journey into, yeah, like delving more into my thoughts and my mind. And then obviously alongside that, like the holistic side, the energy, reading books, starting to seek out people who are, on the same path as well. It's funny how you start kind of coming into this world and then people just arrive. People just seem to like fall into your lap in a way. It's quite funny. So yeah, that was probably my first, few steps. There was definitely a lot of back steps, as there always is. Um, and yeah, that was kind of the start. And then, it's like an onion, you keep peeling away the layers, and then there's other things, you find other modalities, other ways to connect to yourself, and different guides, teachers, and yeah, it's kind of rippled on from there.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you just went into it,
Mm,
and just tried things. And like you said, sometimes we move forward, sometimes we move backwards. Sometimes we're really connected to one thing and maybe that might change, but
yeah,
just give yourself that space to explore that and just to be in it. It sounds like, the perfect permission to connect with ourselves. And
yeah.
would you have any advice for someone who might be on the cusp of making a big decision
Mm,
and they're sort of looking for that connection to their spiritual self? Would you have any advice to help someone maybe get started in that space?
hmm. I think I think there's kind of two things. I think one is starting to be okay with being on your own, being in your own energy. Just some people, can't even go for a walk without putting headphones in, or do it always like needing to feed ourselves with stuff. And unfortunately, the world is kind of quite set up for that, isn't it? We're always gaining information and there's loads of stuff to take in, which is beneficial. But I think if you want to start to connect to yourself, so that I think then that strengthens your trust in your decision making, is starting to spend more time on your own. Um, if just sitting still is like nails on a bed or something, then, maybe that's going for a walk on your own. Like I say, no music, no podcast, just getting to know yourself more, if that makes sense. It's like, I think connecting with yourself is almost like being in a relationship. Like, and some people have never been in that relational, looking at them, their hold on, looking at that inner world as a relationship in a way. You've got to
Mm.
nurture it, you've got to spend time with it, you've got to put into it. Um, so that's one thing. And then I think seeking out um, people around you, whether that's friends, mentors, guides, people who are on that path, or maybe people who are further on than you, to help you through that. Because I would be nowhere if it hadn't been for all the different people who've helped me along my way, including you, Faye, because you were there quite early at the start as well. So it's like, yeah, it's so important. It's needed,
Mm.
we need those people to hold our hands through this, because it's not always easy, and it can be lonely at times and confusing, and you will doubt things because we're humans. We doubt everything, we doubt our decisions at times, and we just sometimes need those people to bring us back to ourselves when we've forgotten, or maybe, like say, we're just starting out and we don't know how to do that for ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. I really hear you in that. And I think that's a really nice reminder is that you're not doing it alone. You
Yeah,
know, once you connect to a practitioner or a group of people, or, all of this is available for support if you're feeling that you want to take that first step, and your guidance on the right people show up at the right time. It's
yeah,
just really reassuring for someone who might just be thinking, how do I get started? And sometimes we can almost expect this perfect plan to
yeah,
act out,
yep,
and just kind of, letting go of that and just seeing what arrives in our space. 'Cause I think, it sounds like you really had to let go of a lot, talking about the high functioning anxiety and the control to then almost just stepping out into this new space and going, okay, well, what's here?
yeah.
And you mentioned loneliness. I just want to come back to that because I,
Mm,
I hear this a lot in my practice. And, people feel like the black sheep, or people that start this spiritual
yeah.
journey, the shedding of that and the shedding of this identity or this self that's kind of been running beforehand. And then we go for a shift, don't we? And it's like, oh gosh, I feel really lonely. How did that feel for you, and how did you manage that?
Mm. Um, yeah, it's almost like two sides to the loneliness as well, isn't there? There's the kind of like very real, might feel very real loneliness of like, oh, no one around me gets it. Like I'm like, say, the black sheep of the friend group or the family or whatever. And then there's like kind of grief mixed up in that because you are shedding layers of yourself. And, quite often people do grieve on their own, and then that can feel lonely too. So there's kind of two layers to it, I reckon. Um, and how did I navigate it? I mean, first of all, I navigated it in all the wrong ways, gripping hold of the wrong people and searching for something in other people, as we naturally do. Because as humans, also, we need connections. It's very easy to fall into that.
Mm,
And then it just, yeah, was the baby steps of just constantly connecting to myself. Because when you are really connected to yourself, you don't feel lonely. When you are connected to something that's bigger than you, call it God, spirit, whatever you resonate with, you don't feel that loneliness. So it did become a practice. It did become something that I really prioritized in life, of spending time, on my yoga mat, meditating, going out in nature, um, whatever it was at the time, it had to be a priority because
mm,
it was important to, it's like transfer from feeling lonely to just being alone, because
mm,
you can be alone and not feel lonely, and
yeah.
I do very often. So yeah, there's a different feeling to it.
I really love that switch that you had from, almost being in this marriage and knowing it didn't serve you, and then taking the courage to just say no to that, to then
Mm,
almost go through a journey where you felt being lonely, but then almost had to learn how to prioritize yourself in being alone and having that relationship with yourself. And that takes so much courage and confidence. And I don't want to bypass this in this conversation because I think this is really important to come into, because I think sometimes we can feel like we're tick boxing things and we're doing everything that says, we're doing the right thing. But there's this whole deeper layer that you're describing around, no, you really need to build that relationship with yourself.
mm,
And I think I just really want to highlight that because that takes a lot of trust as well.
yeah,
And how did it feel to start trusting yourself?
yeah, it felt good. It
Yeah.
felt really, empowering, and like, you know uh, it's like you're imagining your younger self and you've like, yeah, I've got you. Like, we're doing this. Yeah, we're actually getting on a plane on our own, or we're doing this on our own, or that on our own. And like, we can do this on our own. And it was, yeah, it feels really good. And I think when you are in relationships from a very young age, you can get very lost, and not really know who you are, because you sort of, consciously or unconsciously, you sort of mold a bit towards these people. So actually, if you're in a relationship, if you're not in a relationship, it doesn't have to be, one or the other. Carving out time for yourself, to be with yourself, to get to know yourself, like say, to nurture that relationship is, is fuel for you, really.
Absolutely, totally agree. And I think there's something really encouraging in your words that's coming across for, people that might be listening thinking, whether or not it's not the same situation as what you had, but just taking that courage to actually embrace change is what I'm hearing as
Yeah.
some words. And change can be quite scary, can't it, Ness? I'm a bit of a, if the last minute plan changes, I get a bit like, oh gosh,
Yeah.
the world is going to end because, still working through those parts of me. But when it's life changes, or we know that we have to do it, it can be quite you know, create some hesitation or create some
Yeah.
scared feeling in that. And I like how you've sort of bounced off nature and people as a kind of guide in that space.
Yeah. And I think the kind of issue, I guess, with like when we start to feel scared with
Mm.
change, we then think, oh, this can't be the right change for me because I'm only going to go skipping into it, And actually, it's not. It's all of the things, all of the different feelings mixed up in, like, say, whatever change it is, even if it's a really positive change. Like, I don't know, you might be moving to a new location or a new job that's really exciting. There still can be other little feelings in there. So it's like, okay, um, doesn't always feel good all the time. And that doesn't mean that it's not the right change. And I think we all want change. We actually love change. We don't want to be stagnant and living the same life all the time. But what's I going to say? Change is the unknown, and that's what we don't like. So that's what we have to get used to and like build up our tolerance to, almost, and our resistance to, like, not knowing what this change will bring. And I think that's what I've created for myself through the
Mm,
years.
that's amazing. And is that coming into your inner world and just being anchored in there? And an inner world, how would you describe that? What is inner world? For someone that
Oh,
might
that's a
have
question.
heard,
um,
Venus. But
yeah,
what
no.
does inner world mean? Like from my perspective,
Hmm,
it's being in your body.
yeah, yeah,
But for someone who's listening, who hears you talk about this inner world and, really, really coming to yourself and, really being with yourself through these scary times and trusting and knowing that any change is okay. How does that inner world show up for you?
yeah. And I guess when we do connect into our inner worlds, like, say, coming into your body, coming out of the mind, because that's often the most scary place to be, because it's full of the fear and the running thoughts and the negative thoughts. Our mind is negative bias, so it's not always the best place to live in. Um, and once you start to become a bit of a master of your thoughts, start to be able to, like, say, come into the body, or even just coming into the more present.
Mm,
Um, it is always that thing of like, oh yeah, everything is okay. Even when you're in something that can feel quite hard, there's still like always this element of just like, oh, but and it's okay. So then when changes maybe don't go the way you think, or things shift in life, there's always that thing to come back to of like, oh yeah, it's okay. And like, I've got me and I'm okay
mm,
in this world. Does that make sense?
yes, it does. Yeah, totally.
Mm.
And I guess within that, trusting your inner world and having the courage to be in the inner world and make these changes at this time where you started to really connect with your inner world, how did that ripple out into your personal life? Not in your sort of practice, but
Mhm.
I think from knowing you, there's a few, decisions that you made or,
Yeah.
to make yourself feel happy or to grow or to connect to your heart. Is there any sort of decisions that you kind of want to share off the back of being in your inner world and connecting to
Yeah.
that?
Well, first, before I share some decisions, I'd love to also share how it shifted a lot of my energy, as in, I used to be someone who's very insecure. I used to be someone who spent a lot of time on my external appearance. I had bleach blonde hair. I was always like working on my body. I never felt, fully satisfied. Always felt like that need to be
Mm.
looking or feeling different. And I think it's something we all, probably fallen into if we're not still in it. Um, and working on my inner world was like, oh yeah, there's so much more to me than this. Like, why was I spending so much time on my appearance? Like, it's easy to laugh at now, but when you're in it,
Mm,
you just, that is what you do. So that hugely shifted my inner world and how much time and energy I spent on other things now that bring me a lot of joy rather than worrying about what I looked like or needing to, like, I don't know, go to the gym and flatten my abs or something stupid. And
mm,
if that's your thing, it's totally cool, but you know what I mean.
mm,
Um, yeah, so that shifted, I guess, a lot of like what I spent time doing, um, which was great. So it almost felt like it just freed up so much more time and headspace, which was great. And then decisions. So, yes, obviously, left my marriage was the biggest, that was the start. And then in this trust, I did some solo traveling a few years ago. Um, and I kind of packed up my business, which was beauty business more so at the time. And I was kind of like, don't really know when I'm coming back. Went away for a few months, came back. I did the same last year. I packed up again and I went to Bali for a few months to live. I didn't really know when I was coming back. Funnily enough, stayed away for a similar time, a few months. Um, yeah, so it's allowed me to do these bigger changes and really not know what's going to happen after. Um, and, there's a layer as well of when you're self-employed, like to have not knowing what's going to happen after is a big thing. So yeah, it's really trusting the unknown. Um, yeah, and just things like different trainings I've signed up to. There's been a couple of things where I'm like, oh, not sure if I can afford this, not sure if this is the right time, but just again was like trusting those things and it all worked out. So yeah, many things.
mm. I love that, going from, like you described yourself, someone who was controlling and
Yeah.
controlling environment or yourself and all of that, and then going completely the other end of the scale and just going to Bali and just seeing what happens and just
Yeah.
trusting. And it sounds like that's quite a big shift, let's be honest, from
Yeah.
that version of you to, just packing up and going, yeah, gonna go to Bali, that feels right in my heart. What happened? I know obviously you shared about this starting the train ride into who am I
Yeah.
and connecting to that, but that feels like, was there a part in this self-development or getting to know yourself journey that was like the catalyst for feeling really okay to make those quite large decisions, I would say. I wouldn't say that was like, choosing your favorite crust to eat at night. It's
I
quite, they're
spend probably
quite,
more time analyzing that. Yeah.
choosing your favorite snack. It's quite a bold decision, and going from, your start your journey where you're saying, I was kind of, it was just something that I was doing, being in this marriage, to then go, I'm going to go to Bali and just have a great time. What was the catalyst? What was the pinpoint in like the kind of stepping stone in your journey that allowed you just to really go and listen to your heart?
Yeah. So for me, it was definitely starting body work. So I'd done talking therapy. I trained to be a life coach, which we did work a little bit on the inner world too in that training. But then I went like way more into it. So I started to do embodiment facilitation, which is about coming out of the head into the body. So using music, I've always loved music. I've always loved dancing. So it was just like so perfect for me because it just kind of brings me so much happiness anyway. So I'm like, okay, this gets to be a spiritual practice now, even better. So coming into that body through that, and then later I trained to be a Sacred Somatic Journey practitioner, which is again coming a lot deeper into the body. So that definitely shifted a lot for me. Definitely made me feel way more grounded in making quite radical decisions or big decisions, if that makes sense. Like to be able to be grounded in a big decision is quite a big thing, or be grounded in a very
Absolutely.
like flowing decision type thing. So yeah, definitely coming into the body. And with the somatic work, you know, I've done a few different levels now, but like the first kind of foundation training is the heart. So it was all about connecting to the heart. So when we did that training, we have to work on ourselves first. That's part of the process. So we were connecting to our own hearts a lot. And it's like you've suddenly got this like new compass to live by of like, oh yeah, like it'll just lead me this way. And I know it always leads me the right way. So even if at the time I'm like, don't really know why, don't really understand this, it's like it does. So yeah,
Mm,
definitely coming into the body and doing, yeah, embodiment work, somatic work was the the thing that just got me onto such a deeper level of this journey for sure. But other stuff helped. But
mm.
this was like, yeah, just an, you know, I know the word transformation is thrown around a lot, but that was the work was transformational for me. The other stuff was
Mm.
like, you know, evolved me. That was the transformation.
Yes. And I think somatic bodywork is definitely a transformational type of modality. And,
Yeah.
you know, you talk about listening to the heart and coming into the heart and feeling from the heart. And the heart is such a multi-dimensional energy source. You know, it connects us to so much beyond the 3D and ourselves. How does it feel to listen to your heart? I'm really coming down into the senses now,
Hmm.
which is funny because, you know, when we say that, I know exactly what you're talking about. I know the feeling, and I know when I'm not as well.
Yeah.
Um, but for someone who might be listening who thinks, "Oh, how do I listen to my heart?" I just wonder whether we can break that down into a sensation or a feeling, or how it shows up in your
Yeah.
world when that feels like that's happening.
Yeah. I got goosebumps when you asked that question. Like, oh,
Mm. Yeah, me too. That's kind of
yeah, like the
overwhelmed.
heart. Um,
Mm,
because I think sometimes people might say, well, I don't, of course I live from my heart. Do you know what I mean? But do we really? Or are we living from what everyone expects of us or what we think we should do? Um, or what we have always known. So I think listening to the heart is something came to me and it's gone now. I don't feel like I think okay, maybe it's better to describe it the other way. I know if I'm not listening to my heart because a decision or something will feel quite panicky, feel quite rushed. It'll feel
mm,
quite like, oh my God, I need to do this like now. Um, it feels like more urgent, whereas the heart's a bit more just like decisive, just quite like direct in just like, this is what we'll do. But it's not loud. You know, fear's quite loud. So I know when I'm making decisions from fear because it feels quite loud in
mm,
my mind. Whereas listening to my heart feels much more, I don't know, softer.
mm,
Um, and it's like a knowing, you know, it's just much more of a like knowing rather than like, oh, wouldn't this be nice? Or should I do this? Or should I do that? It's just like, oh, this is the thing that I need to do next. Does
mm.
that answer your
Yeah,
question a bit? Yeah.
yeah, it does. And I like that explanation of it softer. Because
Mm,
sometimes, we can go through life and it feels like everything's quite rushed or quite instant and very, if I don't make a decision now, then my life's going to end. And, there's almost like the world is designed to put us into this
yeah.
fight or flight nervous system state, isn't it? And to make a
Mhm.
decision and what's next, what's next, like, do better. And I think just that reminder that actually, if you wanted to connect to your heart and live more from your heart, which is a very big theme this year, energetically and
Mm,
beyond, as we're returning back to the heart as a human species and a collective, it's that it is soft and we can be soft, and that permission to be soft in our decision making or soft with ourselves to actually listen to the softness.
yeah, yeah,
you know,
totally,
um,
totally. Yeah.
So I love that. So, it sounds like it was quite profound, the somatic body
Mm,
work training, the sacred somatic journeys, and obviously the embody facilitation work that you did. And what is it like? What is it like to have body work? For someone that might have just heard this from the first time, what does that mean? And what was your kind of experience with that?
yeah. So the somatic body work involves a certain breath work, just like a gentle breath work, which just helps you to come out of your head. So come out that overthinking mind. A therapist like myself guides you in using touch, using sound. Obviously, we've got the breath, and we're connecting to your energy as well. So we bring you into your body in that way. When we come into the body, um, we start to unlock things that maybe haven't been fully processed. So we might get memories come up, or images or sensations in the body. For some people, it can feel quite physical in the body, like, oh, I've got loads of tension in my shoulder, or I've got this thing going on in my hip. And then as a therapist, I would sort of guide them to meet whatever's going on in their body, whether that's emotional, physical, energetic. And when we meet things that are going on, we're able to fully process them, so they can be released from the body, so that we're no longer acting from those sort of it's like having loads of open tabs on your computer and we haven't closed them all down. And that can leave us quite confused. Imagine if you've got all these different tabs on your computer. So it
Mm,
helps us to sort of close down some of these unfinished things, processed things that have happened in our lives and past lives, so that we can collect more and more to the heart, because we haven't got all these other things sort of almost fighting for our attention without us even
mm.
realizing it. That's how I would describe it.
Yeah, really good explanation. And I had the pleasure of training with Ness in
Yeah.
this modality. And, I do want to bring some of that in because I think this work is so powerful. Somatic body work and even the embody dancing and embody facilitation that you do as well is really beautiful, so beautiful. And
Thank
your
you.
life coaching as well, because I've had a session in it and she picks up on what you're hiding from. I tell you, she's very good at that. No getting around this, and I promise you. But it's interesting, isn't it? The synchronicity that can happen in training, but also as a
Mm,
practitioner and work with clients. And, I remember, at times we would be going through a similar journey, or you would go through something and I'd hear some words that you would say as you were on the bed, and then that would put me into a process. But the most profound one, I think, was when there was a lot of coughing.
still is every time we meet up.
So Ness and I tend to have this, let's say this witch past life together. Would you say so? Do you round
I
up
think
and that?
100%. I don't think we can hide it anymore, can we?
No, we definitely can't. And, even I went for a massage today. And this is a fantastic masseuse massage because she has so much awareness of the body. So, I journey just from her giving me a massage. And even though before we were even, I was getting ready to get onto massage bed, I could feel myself coughing and I was thinking, oh, here we go. So there's this time we're working together in this sacred somatic journeys, and we were coughing a lot. And I remember you kind of at first, and it was a lot of coughing, and then kind of I followed sort of in my own process. And I just want to bring that experience here to share because I think when people say somatic work, it sounds, okay, it's just breathing or just going into the body. But I personally feel that this work is multidimensional, and
Mm-hmm.
you can go into past lives. You can also go like into future. You can also go into the present. Also, you can just, be on the receiving end, and maybe it's not this big event or whatnot as well.
Yeah.
But I think we've had too many of these profound journeys now that they're waiting to be shared.
Yeah.
So
And
how was the coughing for you?
well, first of all, I just want to say again, if you'd said to me like 10 years ago, you're going to be having past life experiences, I'd have been like, what? Are you losing the plot? Like, of course not, and even when I went into the spiritual world and I've gone and done many things, I guess I've always been like a little bit skeptical, which isn't a bad thing because I think
Mm,
clients can come to me and be like, and I'm like, it's okay to feel this way because I get it. I wasn't always in this world. So I remember even having this experience of you, and I was like, is this? And then it's just so undeniable. Like I can't even like, sometimes you wonder if your mind's made something up. That's the thing about
mm,
this somatic work is I'm like, no, this is not me creating something in my head here because it's as clear as day. It's like I
mm,
had this experience yesterday, this past life could be a memory from last week. It's so clear, isn't it? Um
yeah.
yeah, so just wanted to share that. But yeah, it was incredible, like you say, to have those experiences with you and those connections. And I think sometimes people will find a certain practitioner because there'll be something that they're resonating with, even if they don't realize.
Mm.
But yeah, we were coughing away, weren't we? I think Laura even said to me at one point, it's like, did you used to smoke? And I've had two people ask me that, two practitioners, because my coughing is so strong when I'm on the bed. And I'm like, no, but it's like I was being burnt. I literally was being burnt for being this healer, this witch. And yeah, that was holding me back in this life in ways I did not know. It was
Mm.
incredible. Yeah. Don't know if you want to share anything more or not.
Oh gosh, where do you start? Honestly,
Yeah.
yes,
We
I
could do another whole
remember.
podcast just on the journeys.
Just on being a witch, right?
Yeah.
Um, no, I remember that. I remember that so clearly in your coughing and just that first
Mm,
initial clearing. But I, I just want to go back into what you were saying around how that was like stopping you from, maybe stepping forwards into your healing gifts in this lifetime, because that was
yeah.
a reason why you were going through um sadly being burnt for
Mm,
being that person. And just to say as well, I just want to just pop this into the conversation, is that these journeys, that seems like quite a massive journey, and it is, but we only tend to go on these journeys for what we're ready for.
yeah, definitely.
So it's worth just mentioning that, and that usually comes down to the individual and also the person holding the space as well. So you're always being held. You're never going to go through these journeys and then be left thinking, "Oh my gosh, how do I process this?" So
Yeah,
just want to
yeah.
pop that one in there. But yeah, how does that feel, just to know that that was your block in this lifetime, and how have you navigated your amazing business from that point?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'd already started. So, my background is I'm actually a beauty therapist. So, I've always massaged for many years. So, I've been obviously in that caring role. And it's funny because actually, like years ago, people used to say to me, like, oh, you've got such healing hands, even when I was just doing like a facial or something. So, it's funny. Um, but I'd already started to sort of promote some other holistic therapies. When I came into somatic journey training, I remember on one of the first circles we sat, I said, I think I'm just going to do this for myself, this 3-month container. I'm not going to do this as work. I don't want any pictures or videos of me out there in this, very much like I'm just kind of here for the ride. And then
Yeah.
I think maybe like a month in, I, was clearing a lot of this witch stuff with yourself. We were always partnered up. And I was like, oh, actually, like, I am a healer. And that doesn't mean like I'm some like incredible guru person. I think sometimes the word healer can be a bit loaded. Um, but actually,
Mm,
like, that that is my um that is like my calling, to be in this healing world, or however, whatever modality I'm in, to be in this kind of world to help people. And I do believe that I went through such a big um, process in myself, big life changes, and I've had to do a lot of healing work on myself for various things. Um, and even going back to my marriage, I, very much did have to do that a lot on my own because there wasn't people around me who were on that path to start with.
mm,
So, I do believe I went through a lot of that to step into this kind of healer role. And yeah, once I'd sort of uncovered a bit of that witch queen thing, I was suddenly like, okay with like putting my videos out there. Like, there's videos of me on your Instagram on the bed
mm.
and in trainings and things like that. And I feel really like comfortable and okay with it. And even talking to people who might not understand it, I'll be like, yeah, I'm a somatic therapist. I might have to explain what that is, but
Yeah.
there wasn't so much shying away from who I was as well.
That's so lovely to feel that and to know that. You
Mm,
don't have to shy away from who you actually are. And I think it's okay to own the title of being a healer. Yes,
yeah,
and I think I've touched on this before, and I'll just bring it in again. Is that often we think it's egotistic to own actually something that we're here to do, which seems a
yeah,
bit odd, and also having that witch wound as well, like that this sort of double-edged sword of gosh, how do
yeah.
I show up in the world? But I love that you have just owned that space with these words that you're sharing. And gosh, Ness, what a journey. What an absolute journey. From the start of the podcast to, realizing actually just reclaiming yourself each time to having a somatic experience and going, oh, okay, there's something past life that's been running the show as well.
And I think it's interesting, isn't it, to think about that, because I think sometimes we're sort of aware of blocks maybe in our life, and people, have a lot more awareness than they do now, which is great. But there might be something else that you don't even know about because it is past life. Yeah. But I think you sort of have this feeling of like, you're a bit of an old soul, you've been around a bit.
Yeah, you definitely know that.
Yeah.
I definitely know that. No, I'm joking. But yeah, it's so true, isn't it? And I think yeah, it's a really great reminder that it's okay to be an old soul in a world that is, can be quite chaotic or quite dense and quite, materialistic and whatnot. And actually
Yeah.
there are these modalities to help bring us back into ourselves and that inner world, and just to really reconnect or be with that old soul, and that's okay. And I think it's really refreshing to talk about past lives actually. And you know me, Ness, I always love a good conversation about this and that and everything else like you do. And I think it's just kind of losing that, oh, it's a past life, or the
Yeah.
stigma around that, because we have come through many, many lives. And we're not just here. We're not just here. And we have these multi-dimensional versions of ourselves from different places, times, and, to bring that all in and just to really be grounded in your inner world is such an achievement that you've really come to.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, it takes a lot of work, but so worth it. So worth it. And you can
Oh, yeah.
tell.
100%. Absolutely. And like, as you were talking then about like us being like multidimensional and that, and it's like, oh, yeah, like when you reclaim these parts of yourself and you tap into this side of yourself that maybe you haven't before, it's like, oh, yeah, like life's kind of exciting. Like, what's going to happen? Like, I know, like us and some other girls we trained with, we're always chatting, and it's like, it's so exciting because something's always going on, because we are so tapped into like our energetic kind of selves as well, and our spiritual selves. And it's um yeah, it makes the journey more fun here on Earth, I think, than, we've got our human life and we've got this other interwoven bit as well. And, you get to have both.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And I think there's something about actually coming into the inner world and experiencing sometimes those sticky parts, those muddy parts of, like, we will go through the witch room together and you were continuing, and to actually clear that space to actually access more of who we are, like access more of that multi-dimensional version of ourselves to, like you said, be in this exciting creator mode. What am I going to do next? Or
Yeah.
this has come into my space and I feel like I've called that in, or maybe we haven't, but we're being guided to maybe go in this totally different direction from what our mind maybe had planned out for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just, I'm such in awe of your journey, Ness. Just the courage and confidence that you've had, and to come on here today and to share that and to allow your story to inspire others that actually beyond that hard decision is this new pathway, is this new life, and that is available for each and every one of us if that's what we want. And
Yeah.
just your toolkit and your suggestions, or maybe just take inspiration from how Ness took those first steps, is really going to help many people who listen to this podcast. And I just want to round up your human experience, your past life experience, your witchy self, your healer self, and all of that. And I just want to just wrap that all up and just give you the space to share anything in terms of guidance for anyone at the moment that might be on the fence from maybe accessing the inner world, or debating whether or not they should listen to it.
Yeah. Two things. I think one thing, hopefully I remember the second. The first thing is I think there's a lot, or quite often, fear of coming into the inner world. I had that experience myself. Um, I was on the training, I was there, but I was also like, I'm really scared, and I just want people to know that that is quite normal. And I think people think that if they're listening to the intuition, there'll be no fear, but there's still fear. It's just being able to manage the fear is
Mm,
what you get better at.
mhm,
Um, and it's not always easy. I'm not going to pretend it is meeting your inner stuff because we have to process, unfortunately, and delayer some of the shadow and the traumas and the things we don't want to face. But it's already in you. And I think that's what the bodywork's taught me. You're carrying it around anyway, so you may as well look at it, process it, and get rid of it,
mm,
Because I think it's like, say, it's already in our body, you're already carrying it. So, yeah, I just sort of want to give that a bit of space because
mm,
it is really normal to feel a bit fearful of what you might meet. And that is normal. And it's like, say, it's so worth it. It's so, so worth being able to release those things for just, an hour that's at parts, not all of it might feel a little uncomfortable. And obviously you're held in such a safe way that it
mm.
actually feels
Yeah.
quite healing in itself to have someone witness you and hold you in something, especially if that's something you've often done on your own. So just wanted to sort of say that um, I think the advice is just to explore, and if you're feeling the pull, trust it, it's part
Mm,
of the trusting ourselves is to listen to those little niggles of like, oh yeah, I've been curious, maybe that's why you're listening to this podcast now, already curious. So you're already following those little breadcrumbs. And like you say, just get curious with things, try things out. You might have a somatic session and it might not be for you. There might be something else that's more aligned for you. Um, but I think if you are having that feeling of like, I always had this feeling
mm.
of like, oh, there's something more for me here
Yeah,
on
yeah.
this life. And I think I felt like that was very egotistical. Like, oh, I'm better than other people. And that is not what I mean at all. And I think a lot of people will resonate with that feeling of like maybe looking around at your life and being a bit like, is this it? Is this like all I'm going to do in my time here on the earth, which is quite short? And it's okay to want more. And that doesn't mean that you throw away your life or that you think that you're better because you want more. But it's about that, again, that deeper knowing of like something more is for me. And maybe that's in your work. Maybe that's in, like, say, a healing wellness modality to help others, or maybe it's in another area of your life,
Mm.
that there's just that sort of, again, that knowing, that thing that won't quite leave you, that like, yeah, there's something else here that I know I need to tap into, that I haven't met my full, what's the word? Like capacity? I'm not sure. Yeah.
Potential.
Potential. That's the word. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. That's it. Definitely.
That's a great reminder. So I think often we can just feel that it's just our imagination or it's a dream. But actually, if you're
Mm,
feeling it in your heart, like you were referring to in earlier in the podcast, then it has a place to be real. And
yep.
yeah, you can and make your time not worthy on earth, it's not what I want to say, but just live your life here is kind of what I'm hearing for your
Yeah.
words. Mm.
Absolutely. And, that doesn't mean when you think, oh, is this it? It's like, oh, actually, I want this big career and I want this and that. Like, for me, actually, there's been a lot of stripping away when I wanted more. It's like, oh, actually, I want more of just a very simple life and more connection to the land and more experiences in my life, rather than just working away. Whereas a lot of us kind of just fall into that, kind of world that we are conditioned into, just kind of work, repeat, and, you know, that's a whole other conversation, but you know what I mean? It's just, yeah, it can be, anything.
Mm. I'm really glad that you brought that in actually, because I think in it, in the introduction when I introduced you, I said that you're very heart centered, your approach, but also in your personal life. This is, kind of what I was referring to is the fact that, you have really kind of stripped away stuff that doesn't actually resonate for you, not just by
Yeah.
making these bold decisions to go to Bali and have these great experiences, but just like you said, connecting to the land, maybe working a bit more with your own energy levels and not being on this like constant because you refer to yourself as being this like controlling of your life, but also this anxiety driven fuel. Um so it's really interesting that you're, bringing this into conversation. And I'd love just to like spend a minute or so before we round up actually on that, because I think from my personal experience for clients, I'm receiving a lot of clients who are wanting to say no to this high achieving corporate role that they have actually inside. There's this desire to maybe just be a mum or to soften, to have a relationship or just reconnect with the land or not be so busy. Do
Yeah.
you have like any advice in that space to share?
Yeah. I think it's realizing what really makes you happy. Because, I used to be very career driven. I spent most of my 20s building up my beauty business. I was fully booked all day, every day. And I thought that that was, again, what should make me happy. And it didn't. And, I live a much more relaxed life now. And I have lots of time to do things that bring me joy. But a lot of those things don't actually cost me money. It's just like baking, dancing away in my kitchen, going for a nice long walk, and I feel like so rich because I have so much space and time to do those things, and a lot of people don't. And, it can be a bit hard to sort of like shift your life into a different way, especially like, say, society's not always built up that way. But I think the more of us do that, the more it ripples out and more other women have permission to do that as well, because it feels like there was a time where women, maybe like our kind of mum's generation, were like in that, like, need to be seen as equal to men,
Mm.
and we got to work really hard to show that we can do everything. Um, and that's great. And that, that got us so far. but now it feels like, say, there's like this collective thing of like, now women are like, like I actually just really want to be a mum and just bake, like I'm very happy and do a few clients, that's perfect world to me. I don't
Mm,
need to have all this other like success, which I really thought I did to make me happy.
mm,
And I
yeah.
think it's just about making a tiny step towards that, like be that rebel, be the first person in the office that's not going to do overtime, or say yes, just say no a few times, and just take those small steps towards that life if you want to slow down, if you want to, like you say, soften a bit. Because I think most of us deep down do. And I think, yeah, I don't think you realize how much you do until you come into it.
Yeah, great advice. And when you say soften a bit, is that connecting to the heart? Is that listening to your heart? And, is that what you did to, make these changes in your life in terms of just slowing down and not be so career driven because it just didn't feel right? Is that from you listening to your heart, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
again, it's like not listening to the expectations of a lot of other people and what people think you should be doing, and or what you think you should be doing that will make you happy and successful, because it's quite often not the thing you think, because you're thinking with your mind and you're not using your heart to guide the way. So,
Mm,
yeah, it's just tuning in a bit more, isn't it? To see, like, okay, what does actually really make me happy? And is this what I thought? Or is this like what everyone else
mm,
thinks? Or is
mm.
it maybe just the people around me that do all this, so I'm going along with it, and actually this isn't what I want, which as women, it's very easy to do.
I love that. I love that reminder. And if someone was listening to this conversation and they wanted to start listening to their heart and connect with you and maybe have some sessions of some sort, whether that's somatic or we're just laughing actually because Nessa's just had a her old it's an old gentleman, your neighbour, who's just walked in the background in the podcast. So we're just kind of bringing ourselves back to
Gathering
finish.
ourselves after that hilarious interruption.
Yes, of course. And I actually have I'm just thinking as well, going back to what we were saying. Oh, that's brilliant. You can't time these things. It's absolutely amazing. He just wants to join in on the energy. He could have actually just sat down and we could have asked him a lot of questions on this
He's probably
podcast.
got a great journey to tell you
Yeah.
about next episode.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So, I just think there's going to be people that are going to be so inspired by this story of yours and your journey and your courage and just all your learnings as well, because you're not just working with the body in a somatic way, like you also do a bit of breath work and you do life coaching as well, online, in person, and you work with the mind as well. And like I said, I've experienced all your sessions and I'm a huge advocate of how you work. If someone wanted to really connect to their heart and maybe just start to identify their patterns and their blockages. And I know this can go between sacred somatic journey work and also your like 3-month containers when you run them online and in person. And you also have your life coaching. How do they find you? Because obviously there's
Yeah.
such a great range of modalities that you hold for someone to kickstart that journey.
Absolutely. And yeah, I'm often shifting little ways that I work and what I offer, depending on if it's in person or like I'm going to be away again over the summer. So things will be going online. So yeah, it's always worth sort of having a look at what's on offer and reaching out again if you, like you say, want those more deeper, longer journeys, because I do think they're so beneficial to have someone really support you through something. But yeah, you can find me on Instagram, which is just Liberella, or on my website, which is liberella.co.uk. And yeah, find me there.
Which I think is great because the power of, podcasting, someone could be listening from some other country, and the fact that you run all this stuff online is just amazing as well. So you can always be in contact with Ness, and how nice is it to have a practitioner in different parts of the world and bring that energy into sessions as well. I always think that's a good bonus. So Yeah, it's so great to have you here, Ness, and thank you so much for taking the time to come on the self journey and to share, your journey from your heart to, help others in the way that ever it needs to land.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been really lovely.